Fulk III FitzWarin was a powerful marcher lord seated at Whittington Castle in Shropshire in England on the border with Wales, and also at Alveston in Gloucestershire. He rebelled against King John from 1200 to 1203, mainly over a dispute concerning his familial right to Whittington Castle, and was declared an outlaw. He was the subject of the famous medieval legend or ancestral romance entitled Fouke le Fitz Waryn, which relates the story of his life as an outlaw and his struggle to regain his patrimony from the king. He founded, between 1221 and 1226, Alberbury Priory in Shropshire, which he granted to the Augustinian canons of Lilleshall but later transferred to the Order of Grandmont. His grandson was Fulk FitzWarin, 1st Baron FitzWarin. Origins. Fulk III was the son of Fulk II FitzWarin by his wife Lilleshall, a daughter and co-heiress of Lilleshall. Fulk II was a marcher lord of Shropshire, the son and heir of Fulk I FitzWarin of Whittington and Alveston, who himself was the son of the family's earliest known ancestor, thus deemed the family patriarch Warren of Metz from Lorraine. Earliest ancestry Warren of Metz. The patriarch is, however, a shadowy, a mythical figure, about whom little is certain. The later medieval romance Fouke le Fitz Waryn gives his name as Warren de Metz. Whatever his true place of origin, it is however generally believed that the head of the Warren family came to England during the reign of William the Conqueror. Neither the father nor his sons were during that reign tenants-in-chief, that is to say, important vassals to feudal barons. Rather, the grants of lands were obtained from later kings. Fulk I was rewarded by King Henry II for his support of his mother Empress Matilda in her civil war with King Stephen, and conferred to him in 1153 the royal manor of Alveston in Gloucestershire, and in 1149 the manor of Wadborough in Leicestershire. Fulk II held those properties after the death of his father in 1171. Career. Land dispute. At some time before 1178, Fulk II married Lilleshall, a wealthy heiress, a daughter and co-heiress of Lilleshall, who held Ludlow Castle in the Welsh Marches for the Empress Matilda during the civil war between herself and King Stephen. Throughout his lifetime he encountered numerous problems in receiving his patrimony and his other claims to land. These land disputes included estates his father held in chief from the crown and others which he had held from the Peveril family as overlords. Other lawsuits concerned Whittington Castle held by the Peverils during the reign of King Stephen, although he won the right to Whittington in or about 1195. He never received formal legal size-in, and it remained in Welsh hands at the time of his death in 1197. Whittington Castle lies on the English side of Offa's Dyke, which during the Norman era and before was the border between England and Wales. The site was fortified as a castle by William Peveril in 1138, in support of Empress Matilda, the daughter of King Henry I, in her struggle for the throne against King Stephen, grandson of William the Conqueror. In the late 1140s the lordship of Whittington, like Oswestry and Overton, ceased to be part of England and became part of the Kingdom of Powys and a Welsh marcher lordship. In 1165 Henry II granted the castle of Whittington on Roger de Powys, a Welsh leader, to whom he gave funds for its repair in about 1173. Roger de Powys was followed by his son Myrig, who was followed by his son Wernock. A rival claim was made by Fulk III FitzWarin. Rebellions. Fulk III continued the claim to Whittington made by his father. After his father's death in 1197, Fulk III offered relief of £100 for the inheritance of Whittington. However, Maurice of Powys, the son of Roger of Powys, who had offered half that amount, on the 11th of April 1200 was granted Whittington by King John. Again, after Maurice's death in August 1200, King John granted it to Maurice's heirs. It is not known why King John refused to recognize Fulk's claim to Whittington as his rightful inheritance, but by April 1201 Fulk was in open rebellion against the king. He was accompanied by approximately 52 followers, including his brothers William, Philip and John, his cousins, and by the family's many tenants and allies in the marches. Fulk's rebellion is not related in detail by chroniclers but was clearly considerable, as in the spring of 1201, while King John crossed into Normandy and Poitou to suppress a revolt by the Lusinians, he ordered Hubert de Burgh, with 100 knights, to counter the rebellion of Fulk, and William Marsh, a Somersetshire knight who was raiding shipping off the coast of Devon. In July 1202 Fulk and his men are reported to have taken refuge in Stanley Abbey in Wiltshire. Another man, Gilbert de Douai, is mentioned in records as having been an outlaw associated with Fulk FitzWarin. Yet another, Eustace de Kively, was pardoned earlier in 1202 by King John for being associated with Fulk. After many years of being an outlaw, on the 11th of November 1203 Fulk was pardoned together with over 30 of his followers, including his brothers William, Philip and John and his cousins. In October 1204, on payment of a fine of 200 marks, Fulk at last received right and inheritance in Whittington. Whittington Castle thereafter descended in the FitzWarin family, all subsequent holders bearing the first name Fulk, until the death of Fulk FitzWarin, 7th Baron FitzWarin in 1420. In 1207 Fulk III was clearly highly regarded by many of the king's barons, as evidenced by the identity of men known to have provided surety for Fulk's fine of 1,200 marks to marry the heiress daughter of Robert le Vavasseur. The suretors included the Peverils, Alan Bassett, William de Braze, de Lacy, William Longuespayer, 3rd Earl of Salisbury, and Henry de Bohun, 1st Earl of Hereford. On the 9th of February 1214, when King John again set sail for Poitou, Fulk was among the barons who accompanied him. He is believed then to have been a vassal of Geoffrey de Mandeville, Earl of Gloucester. In 1215 Fulk was one of many, giving great trouble to the Sheriff of Shropshire. Before 1216 and the accession of the infant King Henry III, John's son, Fulk's manor of Alveston had been seized by the Crown, and in the following year, 1217, all of his other lands in Gloucestershire were likewise seized. By 1218, however, Fulk had made peace and his lands were ordered restored by the regents of Henry III. By 1220 Fulk had regained some favour with the young King Henry III and had been allowed to rebuild and fortify Whittington. In 1223, however, it fell to Llywelyn, the great Prince of Wales. Fulk regained it the following year, although his disputes with Llywelyn continued and more of Fulk's lands were seized. By 1228 a truce seems to have been reached between Fulk and Llywelyn following the intervention of the king. Throughout these years Fulk's relations with the king were changeable and seemed to be directly dependent on the state of affairs in Wales. As a marcher lord, Fulk's role as a protector of the English border against the Welsh was vital to the English king. He arbitrated several border disputes on behalf of the king, and although there were more personal disagreements, there were no more rebellions on the part of Fulk III. Marriages and progeny. Fulk III FitzWarin married twice, firstly in about 1207 to Maud le Vavasseur, daughter of Robert le Vavasseur and widow of the powerful Lancashire Baron Theobald Walter. He secured pledges for the marriage from his brother William and from Maud's father, Robert le Vavasseur, who was a tenant of the feudal barony of Skipton in Yorkshire. Maud died in 1226 and was buried at her husband's foundation, Alberbury Priory in Shropshire. He had the following progeny by Maud le Vavasseur. Fulk IV FitzWarin. Fulk Glass. Her wise FitzWarin, wife of William Pandulph, a marcher lord. Joan FitzWarin. Eva FitzWarin. Fulk married secondly to Clarice de Auberville, daughter and heiress of Robert de Auberville of Iden and Eham, Sussex, by his wife Clarice de Guesclin. The progeny from this second marriage appears to have been a single surviving daughter. Mabel FitzWarin, who married one Sdly William de Crevecoeur and two Ndly John de Tregose, Lord Tregose, by whom she had two daughters and co-heirs, Clarice and Sybil. Death and burial. Fulk III lived to a great age, and at some time before his death in 1258, he handed over control of much of his responsibilities to his son and heir Fulk IV. In 1252 he made his will, in which he stated his wish to be buried at the priory he founded, Alberbury Priory. Romance of Fouke le Fitz Waryn. After Fulk's death he became the subject the famous ancestral romance known as Fouke le Fitz Waryn, which contains a highly embellished account of his life and family history. The biography of Fulk III survives in a French prose ancestral romance, extant in a manuscript containing English, French and Latin texts, which is based on a lost verse romance. A 16th-century summary of a Middle English version has also been preserved. The work is part of the Matter of England. The outline of the work is as follows. As a young boy, Fulk was sent to the court of King Henry II, where he grew up with the king's younger son, the future King John. John became his enemy after a childhood quarrel during a game of chess. As an adult, King John retained his animosity toward Fulk, whom he stripped of his ancestral holdings. Fulk thereupon took to the woods as an outlaw and lived a life of adventure. The story may in fact have confused aspects of the lives of two FitzWarins, Fulk I and Fulk II, father and son. The romance of Fulk FitzWarin is noted for its parallels to the legend of Robin Hood.